sexual assault allegations, Sean Diddy Combs is prepping for the trial of his life and assembling his own version of a dream team to take on the federal prosecutors in his sex trafficking case. On Monday, Combs' attorneys filed a third request to appeal his detention order. That order requires the Bad Boy Records founder to remain in jail until trial. But in those new court documents, new names have been added to the Hitmakers Council, and those new names who agree to join his team are legal giants who are up for the challenge. So who are they? Anthony Rico is a well-established death penalty attorney. He reportedly led the defense in up to 45 federal death penalty cases. According to his bio on the Fordham Law University website, some of the notable yet controversial cases included Rico serving on the counsel in the World Trade bombing conspiracy case and embassy bombing case in 1998. Some of his other cases included People versus Corey Arthur. Arthur was charged in the murder of the son of former Time Warner CEO Gerald Levine. Rico was able to get the death penalty off the table and litigate Arthur's sentence to life in prison. He also previously represented the undercover NYPD officer acquitted in the 2006 killing of Sean Bell. According to his bio, he doubles as an adjunct professor of law at Fordham and has been practicing law since 1982. Another new addition to the Diddy defense team is Alexandra Shapiro. According to her firm's website, she's labeled as one of the nation's leading appellate lawyers, and her work is recognized in the reversals of both civil and criminal cases. She graduated from Columbia University School of Law in 91 and began working as a clerk to Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg before going on to work in white-collar defense. Shapiro even landed her own huge wins in the Supreme Court and narrowed the scope of the federal fraud statutes to reverse the wire fraud convictions of Western New York developer Louis Simonelli and former Andrew Cuomo aide Joseph Percoco. She's also representing convicted cryptocurrency fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, who was reportedly in the same unit as Shapiro's newest client, Sean Combs, aka Diddy. And if you're wondering if she's related to the Robert Shapiro from the O.J. Simpson case, the two are not related. Shapiro and Rico now join Mark Agnifilo and Teeny Garagos. Teeny Garagos is the daughter of the attorney to the star's Mark Garagos, who famously represented the likes of Winona Ryder, Michael Jackson, and Chris Brown. But according to Teeny's bio, she's making a name for herself. She was a founding partner of Agnifilo and Trader and has defended clients in federal and state cases at the trial and appellate level. Her experience is in defending and investigating allegations of sexual misconduct, and she's represented a number of people accused of sexual assault and sexual harassment. But on the flip side, she's also represented victims of sexual assault and violence. But her range doesn't just include sex crimes. According to her bio, she's also defended a wide range of criminal matters, including securities fraud, wire fraud, public corruption, tax evasion, deportation, and narcotics cases. And of course, there's Mark Agnifilo, who seemingly has been the face of Diddy's defense team thus far. According to his bio on his firm's website, he's won acquittals in many of the most complex and difficult trials in America. In the past several years, he secured 3 acquittals in cases ranging from assault to international tax fraud to political corruption, and has tried more than 200 cases over his 30-year career. With all 4 combined legal experience, it seems they're all up for taking on a music mogul accused of sex trafficking. As Diddy faces another hearing slated for next week, we can expect his new additions to argue for bail once again. But will it be successful? Well, that's up for a federal judge to decide if third time's the charm. There are a lot of difficult stories that we cover here at Law and Crime, and part of the reason we're able to keep bringing you these types of stories is because of our great sponsors. So I really want to take time to thank Upside for sponsoring us. If you're wondering what's Upside, well, it's a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas and groceries. And it's actual real cash back too. Money appears in your Upside app that you can transfer straight into your bank account. So here's what you do. Download the Upside app, then claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. I went to 7-Eleven, got candy, some other snacks, used the app, and honestly, it's super simple. You can use the app at places like Shell, Exxon, and fast food favorites like Taco Bell, and that's just to name a few. So to find out how much you could earn, download Upside or click the link in the description and use our promo code LCNews to get 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Again, that's promo code LCNews for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. I'm joined now by criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Florina Altschuyler. Now, Florina, I really appreciate you joining me today. Diddy has hired some pretty heavy hitters to join his defense team. Is it significant to you at all that he added a well-established death penalty attorney into his case, that being Anthony Rico?
Certainly, he's not charged with any crimes that expose him to the death penalty. But anytime anybody is charged with a crime, especially somebody with significant money, they're going to hire established attorneys with experience, and they're going to hire a team of attorneys.
And he also added Sam Bankman-Fried's attorney, that being Alexandra Shapiro. What do you make of that addition to his team, given she's still representing Sam Bankman-Fried and he's reportedly housed in the same unit as Diddy?
You know, that's actually not all that surprising. Oftentimes, defendants will speak to other defendants. They'll have exposure to other defendants while in custody, and will sometimes, by recommendation of other defendants, hire an attorney that is representing one of them. I've many times seen clients hire the same attorney as somebody else that's in the same cell block with them, just because of preferences. It's not much different than how people find their estheticians or their physicians or pick the gyms that they go to. It's by word of mouth.
And just looking through their bios, they all have very well-established careers, each in their own right, of defending clients accused from different ranges: assault, sex crimes, white-collar crimes, death penalty cases, etc. But in your opinion, what will make Diddy's case different in terms of defending?
The biggest issue with his case is the number of alleged victims that are coming forward. And normally, when you have a case of one complainant against one defendant, instances of prior situations with other complainants are not going to be relevant. They're going to be entirely too prejudicial, and they're not something that's going to come into evidence at trial. Think of the Weinstein case, where they did, and then the case in New York was reversed because of those three other women's incidents that came into evidence, and the court determined were entirely too prejudicial for purposes of determining whether or not he committed the offense charged with that. In this case, what I expect is going to happen, at least on the civil end, is there's over 100 different complainants coming together, suing together, almost like a class action lawsuit, which for purposes of a sex crime is really unique. And that's going to allow all of that evidence cumulatively to come together in one case. I would not be surprised. In fact, I fully expect that in the criminal case, the same thing is going to happen, because he's charged with sex trafficking. And so they're going to be able to put into evidence before the same one jury this long list of women and men who are the victims of his actions. And that, while it's overwhelmingly prejudicial, is relevant to the charges. And so it's going to come in, and it's going to be really difficult to overcome. You know, I've had clients who have had this slew of charges that, for factual reasons under those circumstances, are able to be brought together. And I explained to them, listen, I could beat the first. I could beat the second. Maybe I could even beat the third. But when you have 27 different ones, we're just not going to be that lucky. After a certain point, there's this tipping point, and it's just too many people saying the same thing that the jury is not going to find reasonable doubt. And I think that's going to be his biggest issue, unless he's somehow able to convince a judge to separate those claims and keep the different complainants apart. But given the nature of the charges, I just don't see how that's going to be possible.
And given their kind of range of experience in the criminal defense world, what are your thoughts also on how that'll kind of play into the appeal process? You know, they're already appealing his bail order right now. They're hoping to go for a third time, hoping that Diddy will get bail. But how important is the appeal process all throughout this, even given that we're not even at trial yet?
So every good trial attorney has to have a keen ear for appeals. Everything that we do in preparation for trial, during our oral arguments, and during the trial itself is to preserve the record for purposes of appeal and to preserve any legal issues that come up where there might be a ruling that we believe could be reversed. The best thing to do, which they're doing, is to have a team of attorneys, because a trial attorney is not always an appeal attorney, and an appeal attorney is most certainly not a trial attorney. And so when you have a team of attorneys with different specialties, you can have appellate counsel watching, overseeing, and identifying those issues as they come up. You can also have that appeal attorney counseling the trial attorney to highlight things that trial attorney may not know to argue and to preserve. Without the two working together, that trial attorney has to also be an appellate expert, which is not often the case.
And you said something interesting. You said team. Now, some are also saying this is kind of Diddy's version of setting up like an O.J. Simpson-like dream team. What are your thoughts on that kind of comparison?
Elizabeth, I've been thinking that our entire conversation. That's absolutely correct, and that's a great point, right? You know, O.J. Simpson had someone who was an expert in DNA. O.J. Simpson had someone who really was able to hone in on racial issues. He had excellent trial attorneys. He had excellent writers, excellent appellate attorneys. You have to have that team come together to collaborate, especially in a case where the volume of evidence is going to be so great that it is just time-wise impossible for one attorney to have the hours in the day and the days in the year to review everything. And, you know, I have cases sometimes where the case that I am trying right now, 6,600 jail calls. There's not enough minutes in the day or days in the week to be able to sit there and listen to them. You need to have support. You need to have additional humans to go through all of that evidence. In federal cases, I get discovery on disks that are in the terabytes of data. It is just too much for one person to be able to do, regardless of how brilliant they may be.
And as the attorneys are appealing that bail order and going hopefully to get Diddy bail for now a third time, do you think that'll be successful?
Unfortunately, I do not. Federal law as it comes to bail is not the same as state court law. Now, in state court, you can argue whether or not the person is a flight risk, argue that they are not a flight risk, and either get them released on their own recognizance or have bail lowered. In federal court, flight risk is a question to be addressed. However, the judge is allowed to, can, and should consider the nature of the charges. And in this case, the nature of the charges is bad. It's really bad. You have to consider the number of alleged victims, the time span of the crime, and the gravity of the incidents that are alleged. And based on that, I am not at all surprised that a federal judge is holding him in custody, and I would not expect him to change his mind and release him.
All right, Florina, I really appreciate your insight into this case. Before I sign you off, anything else you'd like to add?
I think this is going to be an interesting case that's going to have to go to trial, because I just don't see how the government is going to offer a plea that's not going to involve prison time. And I don't see Diddy taking a plea that is going to involve prison time. So this is definitely one to watch.
All right, Florina, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth.
Sean Diddy Combs has pleaded not guilty to charges including racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Through his attorneys, he says he's innocent and will fight to clear his name. and has denied the most recent wave of more than 120 sexual assault allegations against him. The music mogul is slated to appear in court again next week on October 9th. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Milner.